welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to another weekend edition of the PiGosaur Cup. PiGosaur Cup number 53. I'm of course your side VIP. I'm joined by these amazing players, by the moon chats, and by my plushies as well. Welcome one and all to something a little bit different here, just to a replay cast. For those that are curious, this event did occur yesterday. PiGosaur was 24 hours ago, but now we're here. We are going to be covering some of those replays. Unfortunately, we weren't able to cover this live. Yesterday I was unavailable. There were some people over that were making some adjustments to the house to make things a little bit easier for my grandma to actually traverse. So like a bunch of ramps were added, a bunch of ways to like hold onto the wall as well, a bunch of basically a bunch of changes were made. And I was unavailable to cast live, which is a bit of a shame considering this is the TLMC version as well. This is a TLMC version of PiGosaur Cup, the one and only. It is one of our big criticisms, of course, is that it took so long for this to happen. We've been casting tournaments on TLMC maps for the past 3-4 weeks, and finally PiGosaur Cup is stepping into the ring just before voting ends. Remember, voting is going to end in 3 days. We got 3 days, Pat. We got 3 days before voting does end for the Team Liquid map contest. So make sure you get your votes in while you can. Your vote does count. Your vote does matter, of course. And voting is going to be held over on TL.net. And again, you can vote for your top 5 maps in TLMC number 16, and hopefully this tournament can help you determine which maps you want to see, which maps you don't want to see. And again, we've been hosting tournaments for the past couple of weeks, for the past like 3 to 4 weeks on this channel, featuring those maps. So you can check out the VODs over on our YouTube channel. Wardy was hosting a tournament as well, and I want to say that actually I was going to say that Lil Lee also hosted a tournament on the new maps, but I don't think that's true. They were hosting Lil Lee Cup last night, but let me double check. Actually, it was Lil Lee Cup number 46, but I don't know. It should have been on the new map pool. I don't know if it was though. Ooh, it was not. Never mind. Never mind. So our tournaments, this PiGosaur Cup, I believe this week's Monday Night Weekly, and also the TLMC tournament as well. So we've had a couple of events here featuring the new maps, and make sure you get your votes in while you can. Otherwise, we're jumping into our first series, jumping into our first matchup here. We're going to be jumping into Clem versus ReBellioN, our TvP. Game 1 is going to be on Andromeda. Let's go. Let us go. Honestly, haven't really been able to cast too many games on this map. I think actually 0 or maybe 1. But here we go. We're jumping in. And spawning in the right-hand corner of Andromeda, we have the French Terran player. We have the red Terran representing Team Liquid. It is Clem. And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner, we have the South Korean Protoss player. We have the blue Protoss representing Among Us Two People. It is ReBellioN. Here we go. And again, Clem, he's one of the few regular Europeans that does compete in the PiGosaur Cup, that does stay up deep late into the night to take part and to actually perform. Shout out to players like Clem, like your Max, like some of these other players as well. Gerald, Nicaract, Wayne, sometimes Wayne. Do appreciate it. Likewise, for PiGosaur Cup, it is in the morning for the Korean region, so a lot of the Koreans do wake up early to compete as well. Some of them stay up late. Este bien. But there are players like Bien that stay up all throughout the night to compete in this tournament as well. But now they're working on Andromeda. Andromeda does have a shorter rush distance by ground, has a decently secure 3-way setup here. There's a bit of a wider ramp in between the third and the natural, and of course we have the wider entrance into the third base, and this is where things do kind of get complicated here. We did provide some feedback in regards to the center area here of the map. We do have a very direct rush distance from third base to third expansion. Not just that, but there's a lot of terrain here to really obstruct any surrounds or any engagements ahead of time when it comes to these rocks, when it comes to the tall grass, and when it comes to the elevated high ground as well, and of course the better tank positionings behind some of the terrain, behind some of the towers, behind some of the rocks. So essentially going for a frontal push here from third across the map can be very difficult to slow down. All-ins will hit very hard, 3-base all-ins specifically, and this applies to all matchups. It applies to Terran players going for an ARAX in TvP, TVZ for example, or it is in regards to Terran players going for all-ins in TvP as well. It's a little bit different, as Pro Toss players, they can attempt to engage and kite back, but there's no like high ground, there's no elevated position to try to kite back to. The tall grass does help a little bit here when it comes to Pro Toss players slowing down all-ins, but again, it can hit quite hard, and that's what we're expecting out of Clem. If you've been watching Clem as of late, you would know that he's been doing nothing but all-in. It's how he's been taking maps and series off of players like Classic, Hero, and Max Packs. Is just commit and double down. It has been a little bit more rare to see Clem commit into the mid game. The reason for this, especially on the new patch, is that Pro Toss players, they are looking quite strong and quite powerful in the mid game in TvP. Especially because now they have more options. They have Storm, but they also have Colossus as well. The reason why Colossus are back on the table is because of the nerf to the Ghost, is because of the light tag. Suddenly, because the Ghost is now light, that means that Colossus are more viable. They do bonus damage to Ghost, and players rushing the Ghost have been struggling that much more against Pro Toss that do go Colossus instead of Storm. So TvP has been changing quite a bit. And again, we're expecting hyper aggression out of Clem. For the time being, it was double gas. Double gas opener, faster factory into a faster starport, into an earlier drop. Reaper does move out, so will harass. And does he get one probe? Not bad. One probe does go down. There are these fringe bases on the left and right hand side of the map as well, but honestly they shouldn't really come into play aside from whenever you play against mech, or if a player decides to turtle up into sky toss. Drop is intercepted. Not bad here by ReBellioN. Does spot the drop, does force the unload. Medevac gets very low. Clem will be able to break out. Catching a probe. So anyway, ReBellioN. Meanwhile, we do see ReBellioN going for his own blink-based opener. Playing it safe, getting up to 3 gateways, so 3 gate blink out of ReBellioN. But he needs those warp-ins as Clem is pushing here and now. I spoke earlier about the strength of 3 base all-ins, but I mean aggression in general is going to be favored here. So Clem, he makes the first tank, he rushes across the map, he gets one, he gets two Stalkers, and Blink is not done. Yeah, Blink is not done. Stalkers getting caught out, massive pickoffs. And Clem is just going for the kill, going for the natural. The tank will take an extra volley. Nice KDA charge. Very nice KDA charge there. Tank goes down before the cost of 3 Stalkers. There's 1 Stalker left. Viking lands, boys are being pulled. Shield battery is barely targeted down. And this is critical damage. This is game-ending damage here, getting the almost entire mineral line. 8 probes do fall. That's half the mineral line going down. A little bit indecisive, but we'll go for the Stalkers. Blink is now complete. Blink is complete, and he's going for the probes. Stalkers are very low as well. And he will break the natural. Yeah, we're just rallying. We're just rallying across. GG gets caught, and Clem, before we can even talk about the mid-game, Clem, he will take game number 1. GG. Whew, GG, well played. And as we mentioned, again, we do expect to see hyper aggression in this matchup out of Clem. We've been seeing a lot of early pushes, a lot of all-ins, and again, we saw that ReBellioN, he did have a really hard time engaging ahead of time. We spoke about it before, but especially in this matchup, or especially on this map on Andromeda, it is quite difficult to slow down these pushes, to engage ahead of time, just because of the rush distance and just because of the terrain as well. It is that much more brutal, but here we go. Up next, we're going to be loading into Satellite Years. Going to be loading into game number 2. And spawning in the bottom right hand corner of Satellite Years, we have the French Terran player. We have the Red Terran representing Team Liquid. It is Clem. And spawning in the top left-hand corner of Satellite Years, we have his opponent. We have the South Korean Pro Toss player. We have the pink Pro Toss representing among us 2 people. It is ReBellioN. We go. Now, when it comes to the strength of all-ins, especially on Andromeda, the map we were just on, I don't really know how strong and how powerful ARAX is going to be in the new meta, just because of the change to the Baneling. With Banelings being more accessible, being more viable as well, that will take away some of the strength of an ARAX, so it's possible that that might just be a non-factor and something no longer to consider when it comes to some of these maps. I feel like we have to see a little bit more ZVT to really confirm that. For now though, welcome to Satellite Years. This is another interesting map in the map pool. I say interesting because we do have a really secure 2-base setup. We have a ramp coming into the natural, which is a rare sight. We don't often get to see too many of those maps, for good reason, as again they can be very defensive and you don't want a map pool with too many or too much of that feature. We have the low ground setup here, which can be abused, which can be taken advantage of. We have seen Terran players go for 2-base all-ins and 3-base all-ins, mainly 2-base all-ins. We have seen them wedge themselves in between the 2 bases, siege up their tanks, and break their opponents then and there. So that is something to bear in mind. That is something to consider, and something that can be a big threat to Protoss players. Meanwhile, we have the third. The third base is also a little bit more exposed. We have a wide ramp on the right-hand side. We have the area on the low ground that can be abused, as we mentioned. We also have a very wide ramp on the left-hand side as well. If you recall, we were speculating that this area shouldn't, it potentially wasn't meant to be that wide, just because of the cables here, how they end a little bit abruptly, almost looking like there should have been a little bit more terrain here, a little bit more of a tower here to wall this area up and to create somewhat of a choke point. But again, it's very open third. But the reasoning for this is because of the fourth. Bam, the fourth base is right next to the third, so we have an almost in base like third and fourth base with each other, so they do come hand in hand. Of course, you don't double expand. You still have to establish your third base, and you can still be all in at your third as well. But if you can establish a fourth base, like your 4-base setup here is pretty easily secured, just because your bases are right next to each other. Rotations are very easy between your initial 4 bases, if you can get your 4th base up and running, if you can survive said 3-base all in. For now, we are going to be selling in economic opener this time at a Clem going for a Rax expand. Some of the other features, we have the high yield gas bases in the center of the map, that is true, and we have these Zelnaga towers as well, which are walled off by these rocks. For now, we have our tech of choice. It is going to be a Robo opener at ReBellioN. Very interesting. Going for a Robo. This could be a couple different things. This could be a rush into Colossus. That is true. This could be a rush into Immortal production to go for an all-in. We can go for a War Prism, then into an Immortal, into a committed push across the map. We'll keep an eye on ReBellioN here. This is considered to be very safe play, though. Very safe play, because it does allow you to get into faster Immortals and faster Colossus to defend against something like a 2-base all-in. It's possible that ReBellioN might just be reading Clem, that he would just go for a 2-base all in here. Oh, Stargate? I believe this is a Tempest Rush, right? ReBellioN does have some quirky builds he likes to whip out, but I believe this should be Robo into Stargate into Fleet Beacon? I believe. If I know my ReBellioN, it should be a Fleet Beacon, but we'll see. Oh wait, no, sorry. I say Fleet Beacon. I mean, it should be. From the fleet, if we do go for a Fleet Beacon, it could be one of 2 things. It could be either Tempest Rush, or technically it could be a Mothership Rush into a Recall. But we'll keep an eye on ReBellioN. Waiting for that Fleet Beacon. Phoenix production has begun. Going Robo into Phoenix. Okay. Unfortunately, this drop does get across the map, and it will get eyes on what's going on. What was the purpose of the Robo opener then? Did we make a... We did make 1 observer. Okay. The drop does get in, does confirm the tech. Boys are being pulled. Watermine shots. One of them is... Ooh, gonna go up. Getting 2 probes. Now, what's a little bit perplexing to me here is that with a Robo opener... Okay. We're getting there. Phoenix Colossus. So I was going to say that typically with a Robo opener, as we mentioned before at the beginning of the game, it does lead into earlier Colossus production. That's why it's considered to be safer as a build. The downside though, because we're going into Phoenixes, we're not able to afford any Immortals. So the ground army is going to be a little bit weaker than usual, and we're going into delayed Phoenix production for air control. And so far, I guess it is kind of working here. Everything got scattered. Checking Clem's vision, he saw the Robo. He should be where the Colossus are on the way, and we'll see how ReBellioN pieces this all together. As I mentioned, like, his ground army is going to be weaker just because of the Phoenix production. I mean, hey, he does get the medevac, and he does have harass potential as well. It's just a really unique setup. Phoenixes move out. We have only 2, getting a 3rd. So 3rd Phoenix on the way. 3rd TC out of Clem. Clem is not going for a 2-base all-in. He's expanding. Gets an SCV. So building up into a longer game. ReBellioN, he expands towards Clem. Bold move. Typically, I would expect to see expanding away from the Terran player, but does go for the low ground base. You could argue that this expansion is more secure. Could argue. I mean, the plus side is it does help defend this area in between the bases. True. If you recall, as we're committing quite hard, but if you recall, we spoke about how the area in between the bases here can be abused. But if you expand forward, then you can nullify that, as your army is just naturally in position to defend that location. Raven harassing to the bases, double jump into the natural. Main army's here outside of the 3rd. Does get in. Emperor's going to be going down. ReBellioN a little bit late to react at the position. His army rotates as his army responds, and Clem can just go into the 3rd. He can, and he does. Yeah, he goes straight in. ReBellioN just getting pulled apart. Jump into the main. Gets what, 10 more probe kills. And forced to pick up, but he kills the 3rd base. Yeah, he kills the 3rd. Clem, he's just getting out of hand. Unfortunately, ReBellioN just not where he needs to be, just out of position. And there's also the downside of this build. There weren't really many Phoenixes. If you go for a Stargate opener instead of a Robo, then that should deter this kind of drop play. It should. But there were, what, 3 Phoenixes that weren't quite in position. Medevac's going to be cleaned up, and Clem, he's containing his opponent on 2 bases. Doesn't have to push in. Getting 20 probe kills. Aye. 22 probes going down, and Clem can just back off. You can pull away, you can retreat, back off, and build up more of an army. A little unfortunate with the War Prism, doesn't get across the map, and ReBellioN is contained. He's contained, he's stuck on 2 bases. Clem behind this, taking his own 3rd base, now looking to take a 4th, or at least he can, if he so chose to. Clem can do whatever he wants. He's far enough ahead, he's stimming in. Yeah, dives on the Colossus, he gets 1. And he'll get the other as well. Yeah, the Marauders are just so robust. GG gets called, and Clem will take the series 2-0. GG. GG, well played, congratulations Clem, he will claim the series. Again, a bit of a quirky build out of ReBellioN, like I can see the logic a little bit, kind of. Yeah, it was just a little bit weird. Like, in my mind, going for a faster robot, but delaying your tech, delaying your robot production in favor of going for a Stargate after the initial robot, may as well just go for a Stargate opener. In my mind, the only advantage is what we saw, where because the Stargate is a little bit later, and because the robot is earlier, the Stargate is less likely to be scouted. And you can catch the first medevac, which he did, right? He caught the medevac, he was able to snipe the medevac, able to kill both Widowmines. But at the same time, I feel like you can still pull that off with a regular Stargate opener. If you can just hide your Phoenixes and deny the scout, you can do the same thing, but with a higher Phoenix counts, and then your robe is still lined up to go into Colossus. So yeah, it was a bit of an interesting setup there, interesting build. Didn't quite work out, unfortunately, as Clem was still able to pull off the drop play, and did pull him apart. GG. GG, well played. It's possible that if he was able to deflect the initial drops and maintain his army at the 3rd base, maybe ReBellioN holds. Maybe he holds, he defends, and we get a longer game out of that, but GG. GG, well played. With that, Clem will take the series, and with that, we're getting into the semi-finals. We're going to be following Clem into the semis, and he has his next opponent waiting. It is going to be Clem versus Creator in another TvP.